What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the JP Podcast. Today we have John Petrelli, trainer, 30 years in Hollywood. Book here, Confessions of a Hollywood Trainer. And as I'm going through the book the other day, stories of how he grew up, and I asked John, I said, hey, what's the main message you want people to get from this? And it's hope, resilience, and that you can make a lot of mistakes in life and still it's part of who you are.
He's a dear friend, and I would love to capture this moment on stage with him. He's been traveling with me now for the last 8 months. Please welcome John Petrelli. This is one of my best friends in the entire world, and I just want to get a photo with him. God bless you, brother. I appreciate you.
A lot of people may be tempted to say that you have this amazing life, you're working with this person, you're traveling all over the place. But what they don't know is that I started from very humble beginnings, and there were a ton of bumps along the way. And it wasn't until I learned to perfect the art of failure that things started heading in the right direction.
In fact, I don't make any team the whole year that I try out for. I get cut from every sport. And so now I don't have an identity anymore of being an athlete. I don't have book smarts, and at that time it wasn't diagnosed, but I know I had ADHD. I know now that I have dyslexia, and so my grades were C's and D's. And I didn't know where I fit in. I felt lost. I don't know if any of you ever felt like, man, there's something special about me, but I just don't know where I fit in. And I had heard that if you put in time, you put in effort, and you work, you'll be able to achieve things. And I heard that if I committed to something, I'll be able to get a goal. But it didn't happen that time.
I just listened to John speak on perfecting the art of failure. I'm just going to say, listen to his message because it's going to change your life.
The teacher said, anybody have this answer to this earth science question? I look around the room, and I'm like, I know the answer. So I raised my hand. Nobody else had their hand raised. And this particular teacher stood and looked at me, and she said, you think you know the answer? John Petrelli, the kid that got the worst grade in our whole school on our first quiz, thinks he knows the answer? Yeah. She goes, why don't you put your hand down and stop wasting our time? And here I was with my hand up, and I put my hand down, and I put my head down. And the words I heard out of that teacher's mouth were, you're stupid, you can't learn.
Yeah, John did a great job of being able to tell an impactful story that a lot of people couldn't imagine dealing with, talking about how he overcame his mistakes and how he found purpose in bringing his efforts to focusing on something bigger than himself. I think it's awesome. He's such a great storyteller with an impactful message.
I started getting in fights, and I found my spot in violence. I found significance from getting in violence. And pretty soon I was in a bunch of fights because I didn't know how to express myself. I didn't have the right mentors, and I was angry. I've had my perspective so small because I was focused on being angry, or I was focused earlier in my life that it was somebody else's fault. So they put me in a cop car. And that whole time, my thoughts are, how does this happen to me? Since my junior year in high school, I had been thinking I would end up in jail or I would end up dead. And now there's somebody on the ground that could be dead, and I have handcuffs on. We have to understand, everybody, that the thoughts that you put in your head, backed with emotion, will create actions. You have to be very mindful of what you put into your head and make sure it's fed by mentors, make sure it's fed by leaders, make sure it's fed by people that are gonna challenge you and lift you up. At that point in my life, it was everybody else's fault that I was in trouble. It was a teacher's fault that told me to put my hand down. It was a coach that cut me. And it wasn't until I would take responsibility for my own actions that I would understand that I could craft my own life just as you can craft your own life.
I absolutely love seeing John on stage. He had tears in his eyes when he was telling his story, and it literally, I felt what he felt when he woke up and was paralyzed in that bed, and he's incredible on stage. I could watch him all day long.
So they wheeled me out of there in a wheelchair after 10 days. And it was 3 months to relearn how to walk. And I remember sitting in my wheelchair, staring into the mirror. And and I was having a tough day. It was just, y'all ever have one of those tough days? And I was looking in the mirror, and I heard the voice of the detective when I was 18 years old ask me, what are you gonna do with the rest of your life? And I knew at that moment that this was what I was gonna do with the rest of my life. I was gonna help as many people as I could with my story of resilience, with my story of being a leader, so that you can be the next generation of leaders to change. If I can go from being paralyzed, if I can go from being locked up, if I can go from having dyslexia to turning it into a best-selling book, to turning it into traveling around the world, come on, y'all, what can you do? So I'm gonna pose the same question to you. Now that you've heard my story, now that you know how to perfect the art of failure, what are you guys gonna do with the rest of your lives? I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see you be leaders. I wanna watch your journey. I wanna watch how you affect people. Thank you, y'all. That's my time.